Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 83rd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host BW or Bryant W, aka Ice, and Scotty N. So today's topic is serenity. Could you share what this means to you, Mr. Bryant W, and why you're happy to discuss this topic here today?
Sure thing. Good morning to you both. Good to see you again, Scotty. And I think having lived a life of what I would call, without sounding like I'm griping, like unbearable discomfort, any concept of being comfortable is an amazing goal and something that I'm very, very open to trying to achieve. So the word serenity is a wonderful goal, I think. And I noticed that I was very very aware of the quick gifts that we receive when we stop using, and then there seems to be like the body's like thank you, and then the mind gets a chance to settle, and then if you actually do all the other things, there's like little tiny if you're lucky you get moments, sometimes you get a day, like these tiny little chunks of time where you're like, I'm not as anxious as I was, or that's not worrying me the way it used to, or I'm not shaking, or I don't feel like I'm gonna have a seizure, or I don't think my heart's gonna stop beating, like little gifts. And for people that live in that other way, these are really big deals, like that's a huge deal for me. Like I used to feel like I had to like get off the subway in Toronto because I thought I was going to have like a stroke or something. Like that's how unwell I felt. Like I was either my heart was going to stop beating or I was going to have some sort of panic attack. Like, and I lived like that on a daily basis for like pretty much all throughout my 20s. And it was terrifying and I didn't know what to do about it. So I can add more later, but that's what that word means to me. It's this opportunity to possibly feel better.
I love that.
Yeah.
For myself, I said it before on the show, but I was like 0 or 11 shooting for 14. Like there was no balance in my life, first of all. And, there was definitely no serenity. Like I was either trying to, achieve Flash speed status, like the superhero Flash, or I was down sleeping for days. And, like for me, I know some people call Serenity right in the middle, but man, I feel like Serenity is a 6 or 7 for me in that, and it comes quite like Bryant was just saying, where it's glimmers for me. Glimmer is a word that I've heard used, and I'm like, I like that word for it because it's like, it literally is a glimmer of what is to come if we keep living this way with integrity and work. Like it's not like, hey man, here's a dish of serenity, you get it free because you showed up at a meeting. That's not how it goes. You've got to put in the work. And that work is changing your life through the steps and through service. And quite honestly, for me, serenity is like one of the best orgasms I've ever had the opportunity to have in my life. And I'm going to leave that there. Scotty, would you like to talk about serenity for a second and tell us why you were happy to come talk about it today?
Yeah, my name's Scotty.
Oh, we love you, Scotty.
So from my take, serenity is the point. Um, I think that serenity is what is the emotion or the state. No, it's not an emotion. I think it's the state of being that we actually work towards by working a program, right?
100%.
I usually don't achieve it until I get out of my own way,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, well said.
So, and the reason I think it's fundamental is twofold. First, I think that if we if we chase happiness in recovery, it's very similar to just chasing a high. And I don't think that's healthy. I think that I I can be avoidant when it comes to the unpleasant side of life, but serenity doesn't, serenity is like being okay with everything, right? And the
Yeah.
reason I think it's a fundamental state of being for us is because in the serenity prayer, which is obviously the serenity prayer is called serenity, right? But um, God grant me the serenity. That's like the first thing we pray at meetings is God grant me the serenity, or it's what people use to close meetings. And so that serenity is where I want to be because it's not focusing on the storm, it's not focusing on the rainbow. It's some sort of fundamental state of being. And I think it's true. I don't think it's at 5. I think it's at a 7. Because I think that when I'm serene, shit's just okay. Things are good, right? I can be reasonably happy. And I have more to share on that in a bit. Because
Nice.
That was
but
beautiful. Man, have I mentioned I love you too? Because every time we're together, I just feel this overwhelming love for you guys. Like I respect you both so much, and I feel such a happiness to have the opportunity to share this time and our minds together. It means a lot to me to start the week this way. I love my Monday morning boys. Okay, Brian, do you got a question you'd like to ask me?
Sure thing. Are there things, maybe you could call them symptoms or signs, that you are aware of these days that let you know when your life may start becoming unmanageable again?
Yeah. So that hamster wheel starts rolling in my brain.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, I am like cycling on something quite a lot, like I cycled on acquisition usage on top of usage, and budgeting and making sure I had more, like all that crazy addiction cycling. That'll happen with anger, that'll happen with fear, that'll happen with sadness, and that'll actually even happen with happiness. But it's like when I get into those states, I know now that that's got nothing to do with serenity, you know, and it's leading definitely to I'm even in my thought I'm acting out in self will, and that's keeping me from being present, which keeps me from my conscious contact, which is going to keep me from serenity.
Yeah.
Like I really love how Scotty just was saying about it being, the point of the program. Because it's really come to me recently that, like in a moment of real surrender and like, that serenity prayer, like, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. Well, it's like when we have that moment of serenity, all these amazing things can flow out of us.
Yeah.
Uh, and, and that is really the point, I think, where we really have let go. And so, like our lives are unmanageable when we try to grab the steering wheel from the universe.
Well said.
Because it's our discomfort with where our lives are going. And that means we're trying to drive. I'm going to leave that one there. But I loved that question. Great one, B Dubs. Hey, Scotty, what is a good nickname for you? Because, like we just
Ooh.
like giving out nicknames.
I've gotten a lot over the years.
Okay, give us some juicy ones that we could adopt.
And then we can augment it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, scooter.
Scooter. Oh, Scootsy.
Scooty boots.
Scooty boots. Oh man.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's pretty nice.
Scottimus Prime. That's a personal favorite.
Bottomus.
Scotty Boom. Scooty boots.
I think Boots is pretty nice.
Scooty boots is it, man. We'll call you Bootsy Collins sometimes too.
Scooty Boots.
Okay, so yeah, you got to ask that question to Scooty Boots, the Scootler.
Mr. Boots, good morning. How do you know in your current place in your life when things are becoming unmanageable again? Like, are there things that you notice about yourself or how you're responding to the world around you?
Yes. That's a great question. I think the two biggest indicators for me are procrastination and destination addiction. So
I remember.
when I'm on my game, I can successfully or mostly successfully juggle all the different things going on in my life. I can allot parts out of my day for responsibilities, for working on projects, for different things like that. Because like I'm in school, so I have to spend part of my day doing schoolwork. At work, I have to go to my job. And if I'm not feeling well, then I'm making excuses for myself and I'm putting off my responsibilities till another day. And that's not a very good thing because they tend to build up and then you have a deadline, things crash. And especially with things where I want to put my best foot forward, right? Like with work or with school or um, especially my marriage too, where uh I can become avoidant with like household chores and stuff. And that's just not cool because um my wife works full time and I don't, so I should be shouldering more than half of the chores. But anyway, um and the reason I say destination addiction is because I have a very bad habit of starting projects and not finishing them. So what'll happen is I'll be like, there's some like there'll be a project or like something I'm doing, and I'll be getting frustrated with it. So then I start imagining other projects that will give me a better and more fulfilling thing, essence to me. So then I switch projects all the time and none of them get done.
Right.
So I have a problem with because I can literally say like this time this hobby will be different than the other hobbies, and they're not. Because one of the things I've learned about stuff is that you will get discouraged,
Yeah.
and discouragement is actually part of the process. You're supposed to get discouraged. It's about rising above that.
Nice.
So those are the ways I think the two ways that it manifests the most in my life.
I can relate to that.
Gosh, you just described my hobby non-finishing to a T. Like I'm like now Scooty Boots hobby twin. Man, I got some more unfinished projects that I could spend the rest of my life doing by now. Like I've just had 52 years worth of unfinished project building and dragging them all around the fucking world to get them to. I'm like, oh, that's gonna get done now. Don't touch that. Don't touch that.
I'll do it one day. I'll do it one day.
Yeah, no, I like that. Don't touch that. Okay, Mr. B Dubs.
Well, I think the way that my whole thing manifests is it comes with discomfort, which I call fear now. It's usually some sort of underlying anxiety kind of feeling. And then my mind will attempt to knit a story to go with the sensation I noticed early on that mine feeds on any form of lack. So wherever there's vulnerability in my life, where I've like determined that that's what gives my life meaning and or value, if like that whole thread of losing what you have or not getting what you want, like those two things made so much. I've never heard anybody say something that made so much sense to like 1,000 different ways I've responded to life, was that the fear of losing what you have or not getting what you want. And then I had to relearn the difference between my needs and my wants. And these days, when like outside forces threaten things that are important to me, I still have the susceptibility to fear and then the discomfort. And as long as I do what I've learned and don't allow the story to be knit into my mental story, then I can usually work through the feelings and not become this thing entirely. But it comes for me, and then I have to like basically I have to meditate. If I'm honest, like I basically have to pray and meditate and lean into people I trust while that storm comes for me. And then when it dissipates, I can see that my response was probably an overreaction, or I can remind myself that these are not the most important things. You are okay. You've been through similar things. You still have usefulness to other people. Anything to like sort of like recenter. But yeah, it's that whole thing about feeling uncomfortable, wanting a solution like immediately to not feel uncomfortable. And depending on how I go about that, I either cause myself more pain or I find myself closer back to the word serenity.
I love that. Okie dokie, Scotty, or should I say Mr. Scooty Von Booty, would you please answer this question? And I thought this would be a good one for me to start off with my questions, just for a newcomer. Our first step placed us on a path to awareness, connection, and serenity. We received much more than simple abstinence. We've been given an endless supply of principles to guide us as we travel through our lives. How did your first step place you on a path of awareness, connection, and serenity?
So with awareness, I think one of the real benefits of step one is developing that awareness and taking a good, solid look at yourself, but an honest and truthful look at yourself.
Mm.
And I've talked to many addicts who find step one to be very difficult, like on par with step four, right? Because step one is really a mini step four in a lot of ways. But when I first came into recovery, I I didn't really want to stop using.
Mhm.
I just didn't want to be in pain,
Yeah.
right? And it was my stepdad that took me to a meeting, and I realized two things. And one is I realized that I was somehow broken. But I also felt it like there was a way out. There was a path. You know what I mean? And in doing step one formally, uh, my first set of steps that I did were in the AA fellowship. And then when I came in after my relapse, I did them in the NA fellowship. And NA is very thorough in their step work. And I think there's around 70 questions in the first step in the NA workbook. And if you answer them honestly, you get a very, very accurate look at your life. And for myself, I got a very accurate look at how drugs were fucking me up. And that they convinced me that was an issue. Um, and that awareness I carry with me today. Because even though I've got some time, my addiction still manifests itself in my life. And
Yeah.
and it takes away my serenity pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So but that's awareness that I got in step one, right? It's actually it's neat. So I'm going through a workbook called The Gentle Path of the 12 Steps. And it's a very interesting book, and it's done some interesting stuff. But one of the things it asks you to do is a family tree of addiction, right? And I wasn't able to flesh it out too much, but I was probably genetically predisposed to be an addict, right? Because it runs in my family. I was I could have been genetically predisposed to also have mental health issues, as well as just so when it comes to the nature versus nurture argument, for me it's both, right? It's a combination of things. And one of the biggest parts of step one that led me on the path of serenity is realizing that it doesn't really matter which one was which. It's just I've come to accept that I'm an addict. That's the important part, is I accept that I'm an addict.
Yeah.
And then the really cool thing, and to use a math term, or corollary, is that when I came to the conclusion that yes, I'm an addict, and this is something I say to myself in my morning prayer, like, am I still an addict today? I'm still an addict today. But if I'm an addict, and I believe that you're an addict, right? Because you say you're an addict, I'm going to believe that you're an addict. But you have clean time, and you've done things like work the steps, and you've done things like service, then it's a natural, logical jump to say, well, if I work the steps, I can get clean too.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm an addict, and that was not necessarily the most pleasant thing to discover. But if what's worked for thousands upon thousands of other addicts, then why wouldn't it work for me? So I think that's where I'm coming from.
I love that.
Nice.
And Mr. B. Von W, would you like me to read the question again?
I'm gonna need it. Yes.
Our first step placed us on a path of awareness, connection, and serenity. We received much more than simple abstinence. We've been given an endless supply of principles to guide us as we travel through our lives. How did your first step place you on a path to awareness, connection, and serenity?
Sorry. I saw a video recently where this guy's about to go bungee jumping, and he's freaking out, and they're like about to push him off, and he's like, "Let me tell you something," and he just wants so badly to not be pushed off the edge, and that's what it felt like. It's like you're hanging on the edge, like like it's that terror of admitting like the free for all into like a solution that you have no idea about yet. Like I remember I remember meeting this guy at this Starbucks, and I was like, my life is so wild. Like, what is going on here? And that was the first day of a relationship that saved my life. And that's the day that I admitted. I think I had maybe admitted when I walked up to get that 24-hour chipperoo or that desire chip. I think that day I had within my heart accepted the facts of the matter, but I didn't know that I was gonna have to like walk it out, right? Like any other time I had tried before, I had that desire, but I wasn't willing to walk it out. And I'm so grateful. Like I think it's a miracle sometimes. I don't know. I don't like to get too dramatic, but like the forces that are working against us to like keep us from the action phase after admittance is like pretty powerful. Like basically an equal force to the opposite side, like an equal force to the solution is trying to pull you back into the problem. And it's like it's hard to wrap your head around. So I did not just get abstinence. I was very lucky that we went into action like immediately. We actually, after like 2 or 3 times meeting up, determined that I was willing to turn my life over, and that I was I did believe that a power greater than myself could return me to sanity, because that's what that action to me is. Until you like have a personal idea of what this higher power is for yourself, you are basically doing what you think is the next right thing until you start benefiting experientially from what's being suggested. So meeting that guy, going to the Sunday meeting, going back on Thursday, going to the meetings that were not my home group in between, saying yes to the service position, going to the business, like it's all these different things where I was like complete contrast to anything I would have done before. But every single time I did those, my fear got diminished because those things were terrifying to me. I thought it was like a new enslavement of like my free will, but in this like weird system that, you know what I mean? Like I've always been like super sensitive to like my freedom and my ability to just do what I want. And so when I'm told what I have to do, if I don't really see the value in it, it's hard for me. And so, shaking hands, sweeping up cigarettes, whatever it was, I was like, I see the wisdom in this because it's brought me out of myself. I'm contributing to something that is helping other people, and I need this so badly. So that alone just like relieved that kind of like angst about why I was doing those things. And I started to see true value in the process. And so I was relieved to admit, I was even more relieved to know someone was willing to help. My body very quickly started enjoying the relief of the poison not being put in it. And then I could start to see the wisdom in the solution. And so that was really cool after the step one.
I love that. Okie dokie, I'm going to read the question to myself because I am Milan, the absent-minded addict. Our first step placed us on a path of awareness, connection, and serenity. We received much more than simple abstinence. We've been given an endless supply of principles to guide us as we travel through our lives. How did my first step place me on a path of awareness, connection, and serenity? Well, first of all, that first step was my first delicious taste of surrender. And so it, first of all, man, gosh, it made me aware that there is a program that could work. Like part of that awareness was like, holy shit, this surrender is working. Like all these guys aren't just a bunch of crazy religious fuckers. Like, and because I was like, well, I need something. Don't want to die again. Don't want to die again. Pretty open minded. But then I'm like, whoa, this works. Like literally was like, shoo, hamster wheel gone, brain coming back. Like there was so many things. And then I was like, well, okay, like, what's going on in that next step? Like I was ready to dive as deep as it could. My willingness, was fully sparked, and my
Yeah.
my tiny bit of hope turned into a lot of hope and a little bit of faith right at that point, and my connection, I remember going into options and feeling like, oh shit, man, like I was scared. I was like, who's gonna be here? What's this gonna be like? I thought it was like jail. I literally thought there was gonna be locks on the doors. Like, no, like I had no clue. And I went in, and it was really instantly a connection with other people looking for a solution, and everybody was working hard. Like that, I really walked in at like a miracle time in that room because everybody was so far ahead of me. Like they were all working so hard, and I saw them doing so much better than I was feeling, you know, and so I instantly felt connected into the program and into the group there. And when that surrender worked and my mind slowed down from the obsessive thoughts about acquiring, using more, like when that more engine got turned off for a second, that was my first glimmer at serenity. That was the first time where I was like, oh, life could be like this nice little calm thing that doesn't hurt, like that I don't always have to be getting. Like to turn that more engine off was a massive, massive thing for my brain. And I feel like I talk about it more than anybody I know on the show. So maybe mine was really more. You know, like, but whatever it was such a relief. And I, you know, and I would say that that was for sure my first glimmer at Serenity. And I'm going to leave that there. And Scotty, do you got a question for BW? Or should I say Scooty Booty? You got a question for Mr. B Dubs?
I've got, I do, I have two things to say. One of which is,
That you love us?
I do love you guys. So I've heard the use of the word glimmer in a slightly different context that I think is really cool. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but you know how a trigger is something that, you know, obviously triggers, but uh, gets us attack. It's kind of like a psychic attack or something by our addiction, caused off of something in our immediate habitat or whatever, wherever we are, right? But I've also heard of the term glimmer being used to be the opposite. So it's something that triggers a positive emotional response in us instead of a negative one. And I think that's kind of a neat idea. So yeah, so I don't necessarily have a question, but I'll phrase it as a question. So we were talking about the Serenity Prayer, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys know that there's actually a second verse to the Serenity Prayer?
Yes, there is the long form. Would you read it to us?
Do you want, should I share my screen too so you guys can read it, or do you just want me to read it?
You know what?
Okay.
Just read it out loud. We'll get it.
Okay.
Because there'll be a lot of people too who just listen to the audio on this. They'll be fine.
No,
But
yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah,
So God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as he did the sinful world not as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make things all right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. So I think that's a really, I understand why we don't say the second part. It's a bit more religious and it's a bit longer. So we don't like doing long things. But um
I love you, Scott.
but I you know, it talks about being, for what strikes out for me in that one is being reasonably happy. Right. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of what we were talking about with being serene is being better, being serene is being better than being on a five. Like it's more like a 6 or 7. And I
Yeah.
think that's where our level of happiness should be too, where
Yeah.
we have a contentment, we have a gratitude, and that goes. So I was just wondering what your guys' take was on that. And
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I actually I don't know how this is possible, but I've never heard that second half.
What?
Um,
Oh my God. I love
yeah,
that. I
and I
love
liked
that.
it. I didn't feel, yeah, I felt quite good about it. Not religious or anything. I think it actually it goes from like an ideal to like more of like an honest expectation.
practical, a little bit more practical.
Yeah, yeah. And I liked earlier you said something really awesome, and it was cool because last week Milan had that like radical experience with that rainbow. You talked about the storm and the rainbow and how neither of those are necessarily um, where we should want to hang out, and how interesting. So the thing that came through for me is a day like today. So I have a little peace of mind because of something that happened yesterday, which is a glimmer. And I
Mhm.
literally woke up being like, why are you not feeling the way you felt the last few mornings you woke up? And it's like, because I got a glimmer. I got a little nibble. My higher power kind of set out like, I basically now have some assurance in some capacity as to like what I'm doing for the next little bit of time, work wise. And then I'm like, okay, I got the podcast. I have a date to hang out with my sister later. I pulled all the quills out of my dog face from a porcupine. And like back in the day, I would have probably been drinking right now. I would have been like probably either screwed up the porcupine quill thing or been like freaking out, thinking like I didn't know what to do about it. And I think there's a real difference in how I respond to things and then how I take in. Like, I think that before I like expected all these things to be there and then I wanted to add to them. Whereas now I realize how easily you could lose these things that are taken for granted. And I'm now a lot better at being like, I'm really grateful that I have this opportunity rather than like, oh, this is just boring and the same old thing. Like, wish I could say this a little better, but I think that gratitude is the difference between getting like, I'm not constantly trying to get what I want. I'm actually grateful for what I have. If you're honest about that, you feel it like something move within, and it's something that can't happen when you're always looking outside. You have to like appreciate what already is, and then if you're blessed on top of that, then like that's pretty cool. I think we were made to be creative and
Mhm.
to exercise our faculties. But on a daily basis, I think that's what that meant to me when you read it. It's like, I am reasonably happy. Uh,
Give you a
I'm
place
not
to be.
stoked. I'm not right now. I'm not. I'm being honest. I'm not. And I haven't been for a long time. I've actually been in the desert, man. I've been in the valley. Um, and you guys are glimmers, and I'm just grateful to be in your presence.
Well, I certainly love you, and I'm grateful for your presence too. Can okay, so the extended version Serenity Prayer. You know, I was just at a guy's 35th birthday 2 weeks ago, and literally his message was, if you're reasonably content with your life and you're still straight, don't let
Yeah.
anybody tell you you need to change your program. You know, like after 35 years, he was just like, hey, man, this isn't a jigsaw puzzle, and whatever's working for you, stick with it. But he didn't say if you're happy. He said if you're reasonably content. And
That's awesome.
I was like, because reasonably content almost is serenity to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, like, and the more I, when I see myself like spiraling, I know I am not in a state of serenity. Like I might not know the moments I'm in a state of serenity, but I certainly can identify the ones when I'm not, you know? And it's almost always because I'm sitting in expectations or living in the past. And it really it really shows me through my journey in recovery that it's trying to live presently
Mhm.
is like one of the most surefire ways to get yourself in a state
Yes.
where you will have serenity occur. You know, like if I'm just trying, like, whether it's in exercise, whether it's in music, whether it's in meditation, whether it's in prayer, all those four things are the moments for me that I've had my serenity glimmers. And it's it's by no means easy all the time, but it
Mhm.
Yeah.
is definitely um, a joyous miracle when it occurs. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing more than being reasonably content with a day.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
the days that I'm like, man, I was reasonably content with that. Like that is a real feeling of like, that that
Hmm.
is so much more than a all right. Like reasonable contentment is just not something I ever would have thought would have been one of my life goals. And the only way for me to see that is to keep on my surrender. You know, like grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change. It doesn't say grant me the acceptance to get the serenity I don't have. You know, like we have to
Mhm.
create that state through our actions and mindset in order to have all these amazing qualities that we want through our principled action, you know?
Yeah.
Like if I'm sitting there thinking, Brian should do this, Brian should do that, Brian should do this, Brian should do that, there's no compassion or tolerance in my actions. Not one bit. Nor is there love for who you are as who you are. You know, and so it's really getting ourselves in a state for these principles to flow from us. And I believe that more and more all the time, that we are these diamonds inside our hearts that we just have to polish, that have been covered up with our own, you know, biases, life experiences, fears covering them up. And we just got to let that diamond shine in the sun.
Nice.
And Scotty, would you like to have a discussion on what you were just talking about?
On the extended version.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was making notes.
You know what? We still love you.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, so I was kind of taken aback when I found out that there was a longer version. Um, and I like what Brian was talking about, how it's almost like it's a more practical, less ethereal way of looking at things. Uh, I think it's interesting that it talks about living one moment at a time, which would be presence, and then accepting hardships as a pathway to peace, which would be in a weird way that for me that's kind of gratitude. And that might sound weird, but um, I just thought of this quote like for me it's the way I accept or the way I try to accept things that are difficult is with gratitude, right? If something's unsettling me a little bit, gratitude is where I look. Um, and I think, and this is kind of tacking on to what or a synthesis of what Milan was talking about was that. So I think for me, serenity is a place of being present and being grateful, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a mixture
Woohoo!
of those two things,
It's a mocktail.
and um, and it's kind of like it carries with it a sense of optimism. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
true.
like when I'm in a good. I think it goes both ways for me, to be honest. So when I'm in a good mood, I tend to feel like the good mood, I can ride that wave, and that I can kind of extend that a little bit, and I can, you know, try to stay grounded and present, but still enjoy and have optimism that it will continue.
Mhm.
And then for me, when I was, I mean, when I was in active addiction or when I was not doing well with my program, the opposite would be the case too. Whereas if I feel miserable, I would ride that wave, I would be a victim, and I would talk about how, or I would think about how it's going to stay shitty forever.
Yeah.
Right. That's one of my biggest problems when it comes to being in a bad headspace. Is just that I feel like it's going to last forever. This is
Yeah.
it. This is the best it's going to get for the rest of my life, and it's not been the case, right? But I think I have the tools now where when I'm feeling that way, I can kind of um, break that cycle and say, you know what, no, things won't be this way forever. This too shall pass, right? Like a kidney stone, maybe, but it'll pass. And
I'm sorry. I just thought that was hilarious. Pass like a kidney stone, maybe.
but you know, it passes.
Yeah.
So Um, but I
I think that's such a great analogy.
yeah, I just like that being present. And from
Yeah.
that reading, that's what strikes out to me at the moment is being present. For a long
Yeah, it's
time, I
the
wasn't
only
present.
way. It's the only way. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that it's like I know as soon as I'm resentful or agitated, I am guaranteed not being present.
Mhm.
Even if I don't realize it till retrospect, you know?
I think that's one of the easiest ways of losing serenity is to stop being present.
It's an
Yeah.
absolute way. Like if you aren't present, you will never have that serenity.
Mm, yeah,
You know, it's like they're not mutually exclusive. They're directly affected by each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, that's wonderful. You know, guys, I really feel like we have some magical discussions here. I love you guys. And BW, you got another question for me?
Sure thing.
Sure thing. He's got a southern drawl on today.
Um, okay. Mm, okay. So, okay, I'll just do one and then the other. If you can't do, say, a proper meditation, well, we just talked about it. I guess that's the being present part. But just for fun, if you
Mm,
can't say straight up do a proper meditation,
mm.
what are some of the things you do to get glimmers of serenity, like mini meditations? I know you've mentioned music, and Scotty, I'm trying to reflect on some of the things you've said in the past. But what do you guys do if you can't straight up meditate for like little ways to become more present and get little glimmers?
So one thing that I learned that I really like from I went to this course a couple weeks ago, and it actually works phenomenally well.
Uh-huh.
If you hear something, and like you would instantly have a negative reaction to it, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's defensiveness, whether it's sadness, right? And the second you recognize that it's something like that,
Yeah.
you take a deep breath into your lungs. And it doesn't have to be a slow breath. And like what it is that as humans, we naturally constrict our chest as like a protection thing. But the second we do that, it sends less oxygen to our brain, and that less oxygen to our brain gives us less clarity of thought because we have less air in our brain to make better decisions. So just like filling your lungs when your instinct says like don't do it is I swear this is like a magic trick that I'm like, why doesn't nobody else ever talk about this thing? But this guy talked about it and I was like, this is amazing. This is an amazing technique and I've been trying it and I encourage you guys to give it a go in your day to day. If you
Yeah,
it,
that
like
makes sense.
it's like it's just like a real cool life hack. But another one too for me is to go for a walk. Like
Yeah.
whether it's with my dogs or by myself, is I like fast walking. That's my exercise of choice right now. And that one is a good one for me because I can be anywhere and walk. And not only that is that, like I find myself too with my work and life and whatever, I can just go like if I'm somewhere and all of a sudden somebody's going to be late, instead of being mad that they're 20 minutes late, I set my timer on my watch for 10 minutes. I walk one direction 10 minutes, turn around and come back. And then I'm not waiting for them, you know. And then
Yeah.
of course music is my go-to for emotional sobriety, and one of the things that leads me to serenity and reasonable contentment. Yeah, music gives me more than reasonable contentment on a regular basis. There's some mornings where I'm like, fuck, I'm never gonna get this part, and sucking at it. But overall, and then if I'm somewhere where I can, I'll pray out loud in my car or like while I'm walking. Like if because here there's a lot of nature and not a lot of people right where I am in this part of the world, and so I can actually just pray out loud to the hills, and
Yeah.
that's a good one. And I think I'm going to leave that one there, and I'm going to put it up to Mr. Scooty Boots. Oh, Scooty.
You want me to the question again?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it was just that idea of like if you don't have the time and or maybe you just aren't in the mood to like actually meditate, what are some techniques or like little mini meditations or things that you enjoy that can bring you into being more present and or um yeah, little glimmers of serenity.
Okay. Uh, so I've mentioned this on the show before, but podcast that I'm schizophrenic. So regular meditation is not easy for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's ways that my mind will not quiet, and it's kind of out of my control. But a few things came to mind. There's two big things. One is fires, like a campfire.
Yeah.
Uh, I could sit and stare at a campfire for hours and hours and hours, and I have. And I find there's something very recharging and very calming about that.
Yeah.
Um, I have a theory about it too, but it's just I think there's something fundamental to it. And the other thing is and I don't know where I picked up this technique, but when I'm feeling really disconnected, uh, really out of sorts, and especially disconnected to my higher power, um, I'll write him a letter. So I sit and I write to my higher power. I write to God, and the technique I've heard it called is stream of consciousness writing. So
Mhm.
it's not like I'm constructing a letter that I would send to somebody. It's more like I'm regurgitating everything that's in my brain onto the sheet of paper. In what order it comes out, I don't care. What words come out, I don't care. I'm just writing this letter with sincerity and intent to
Mhm.
unload myself and unravel my brain, unravel my heart, just lay it all out on this sheet of paper in the format of a letter to my higher power. And then
Cool.
I'll look at it and I'll read it and then I'll burn it. Because for me, the burning represents kind of giving it to him, like giving it to the ether, sending it away. And I
Nice.
found that technique has been very good for me, especially in times where I was struggling. Like that's like putting the e-brake on for me if I'm going downhill. And it's just like, okay, I got to do something. I don't like this. So that's what I would do. And it works. I haven't done it much lately, but I haven't really needed to either. So,
That's great.
so that's one of the techniques that I use. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love that. And Mr.
What a great
BW.
way to turn it over, and I can totally also relate to the fire.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there,
Oh, no, I
Mr.
was
Sam.
just getting you to go on to answer your own question.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna just say it. I basically for almost 20 years, before and after sobriety, became aware of how much my mind was disturbing my existence, basically. And I
Hmm.
read a few books. What I came to realize is that until I was sober, these techniques were maybe a good practice, but would have no lasting or long term benefit because I was still living out of that part of my soul, creating new problems, creating new shame, habitually sick, constantly exhausted. So basically, it's great to become the observer of your mind, which essentially is the goal of meditation, or to like even go past that. And so until I got sober, all those techniques were basically limited, if not working at all. But once I did, I find myself being a bit more of the observer of my mental activity, which is really beautiful, which means that I'm able to see the activity and not get so identified with it. So I'm not like throwing my whole mind into the trash bin thing like, oh, the mind is nothing but chaos. But I find it's not, I don't get tangled up in it as much as I used to. I don't feel as weighed down by the emotions that attach to my thought processes. And so I'm sort of what I'm suggesting is that I don't do it all the time, but I'm actually a little better at, while I'm actually out and about living my life or even spending time with myself, I might not sit there with my eyes closed meditating, but I'm kind of doing it as much as I can throughout my day. Like not letting the mind run the show, but being like more of an observer of that activity. And it's done a whole lot for me because what it does is like my sensitivity to my emotional responses is like electric. It's immediate, it's instantaneous. The minute it comes in, it's like I feel the voltage. And then if I connect the voltage to the thoughts, then it just like keeps it going and it heightens it. And so if I can just go like, if I can just watch it, and like it'll kind of come back to a place of manageability rather than unmanageability. And I tried to do that. I've spent a lot of time in the forest and by water. I love music as well. Play quite a bit of guitar and try to do some songwriting.
Beautiful
And
singer, this guy, voice of an angel.
oh wow, thank you. And I love being with people. Like when I'm on this, I might have a few thoughts because you've brought up something and I mind will try to like think about it. But I try to believe that throughout these sessions and in your company that I'm present. And so I like also being around people. That helps bring me into presence as well. I find at meetings I'm very good at being meditative as well. I find quite a bit of calm at meetings. So yeah,
Me
some of
too.
those type of things.
I love
I had a
that.
sponsor. I had a sponsor once that would take his glasses off in meetings because
Uh,
then he wouldn't be visually distracted by anything because he was
that's cool.
right. So then he was able to just concentrate more on what was being said
Yeah,
and less on who was saying it too.
that makes a lot of sense.
They should have blindfold meetings. I
Well, have you ever you've done candlelight meetings?
have
Yeah,
not.
Ooh, buddy, it's
it's
really
cool.
good because
I,
you can't see everybody. Like some people
yeah,
are just so it's interesting.
Oh,
I would like
that
that.
would be really neat. Eh? You know how they have? You've probably heard of those like noir dining experiences where it's completely
Mhm.
pitch
I
black.
would never do that, dude. I like to see my food. There's been too much
I
weird shit in my life where I caught something on my food, whether it's mold, creatures crawling. I'm like, nope, my food is visible.
I
Yeah,
actually
I bet you a noir meeting would be neat though.
Yeah, yeah.
it'd
Not
be
a
cool.
not a noir eating, but a noir meeting. Yes.
But on that note, campfire meetings
Oh
Mm,
yeah,
are phenomenal. They're just phenomenal.
nice.
that's beautiful.
Okie
Right
dokie.
on.
I'm going to ask Mr. Scooty Von Bootskins another question. Serenity doesn't mean that we don't experience dramatic events. It gives us the clarity of mind to go through them. No matter what happens, we can remain whole and joyful at our core. Have you received the clarity of mind and remained whole and joyful at the core?
Ah, yes. What I got out of that is the ability to respond to a situation and not react to it. Like
Yes.
we have a member here in Central Alberta, and she'll say first thought wrong,
Hmm.
I like that.
and I think that's great because a lot of times, like I I I I run a loose plan for my day in the morning, and then sometimes something will come up, and my first reaction will be anger and just negativity about needing to change my plan. Uh,
Mhm.
but I don't have to stay in that space. And I realize that many times, um, is my reasons, like, I think it's best if I just use an example. So let's say, and this has happened, um, my wife forgets to pack a lunch, right? But I only find out about it at her lunch is at 12 and she texts me at 11. And my first reaction is like, well, too bad you didn't pack one. But then I sit and I go, no. But then when I think about it and when it sinks in what's happening is no, I love my wife very much. It doesn't matter that I have to do this now instead of later or that later instead of now or whatever.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that I don't want her to go hungry. I don't want her if she is she works a mechanically inclined job. I don't want her to get hurt. And so really, uh, it's a blessing to be able to serve her in that way. But my first reaction is the addict in me going, fuck, me first, you know, me
Yeah.
first. And I don't have to be that way anymore.
It's a
So I hope
big
that
deal.
answers your question.
Yeah, that's a big change.
I love that. And Mr. BW, serenity doesn't mean we don't experience dramatic events. It gives us the clarity of mind to go through them. No matter what happens, we can remain whole and joyful at the core. Have you received the clarity of mind and remained whole and joyful at the core?
Um,
Okay. He's just like, okay, truth or
truth or dare. Well, yeah. So I think that's the key is the realistic expectation. I think that, um, and then Scooty just mentioned like the self-importance or the willingness. So so when I started being open-minded to service and sponsorship, the question would come up like, if you have a day and you call it me, and there's like the things we have to do. It might be 8 hours of work. It might be maybe you have a medical appointment, whatever. I don't know, but there's like the things we do to survive to have our needs met, and then there's usually this gap that we call me as well, and we identify with it as kind of a void that could be filled with whatever we please. And then if somebody takes any of that away from us, sometimes we get protective or defensive. It's like if someone reached over and took a bite of your meal before you've even tasted it yet. You know what I mean? It's like, what did you just do? So with time, the question I ask myself is, can I do this? Not whether I want to do it or not. It's like, can I do this? Like, if someone asks, are you available? Can you help? I ask myself, can you do this? And if the answer is yes, then I usually feel like that's a nudge to do it. I think I'm going off topic a little. I just wanted to reference what Scooty had said. That was kind of cool. Thinking of others, do I have serenity at my core? My core is like far more steady than it ever was. They they say you can't be hardcore if your core isn't hard, and I have a much better center than I ever did. I could be gusted in the wind, like, just like blowing off my foundation. Um, my identity is luckily grounded in a little bit more consistency and spiritual principles that help me outgrow what I previously relied on to feel okay. Like, because I've learned the spiritual principles and because I believe in something greater than myself, I'm not as vulnerable as I used to be. That's what I would suggest. And it's allowed me to be a little better at being consistently grounded in my core. And I would say that that's a major change. So am I serene at my core? I would have to say no. But am I better than I was? Yes.
Hmm.
I love that. That was great.
Thanks for the
So,
question.
have I received the clarity of mind and remained whole and joyful at the core? So, like, let's rewind 18 months and 11 days and be like, holy fuck, way clearer than I ever was before. You know,
Right.
I didn't have any clarity of mind to see through the delusions that my addiction was throwing at me to keep going. You know, like just that. And
Mm.
and then whoa, there's like some weird little echoey thing happening. But
Is it me?
I don't know. I haven't touched anything, so I know it's not a change in my settings. Anyway, um, so compared to what life was like, it is way better. And you know, one example for me while listening came to mind. It was like my daughter just came back from Mexico. Her birthday's this Thursday. She was supposed to be here for maybe a month, and she's kind of fallen in love with this guy in Mexico. So she ended up being here for 4 days, did her specialist appointment, and left. And in 4 days rather than a month.
Right.
And you know, a bunch of my other family members here, like you know, they were kind of really uh, sad and kind of worked up about it. And I actually had a real calmness about it. I was like, man, I want her to be happy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this might not be what I wanted for this next month, but you know, she's pursuing her happiness and her love, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I would never have had that before. I would never ever have had that before. So, you know, the program has definitely changed the way that I can have my whole and reasonable contentment on a moment to moment basis, even when it's not what I want or expect. So I feel like it is working in my life, and it's not working in every moment. I can still get pissed off and
Yeah.
disappointed, but you know, what I would like to end my response in is that I am grateful for the clarity of mind and serenity that I have received. Because I think
Nice.
if I don't give gratitude for that, then why I don't deserve any more. And I'm going to leave
Fair.
that one there. Scotty, do you got another question by now?
I don't know if this is necessarily a question per se, but
I
maybe,
love when you say that because per se is like you're just like awesome. Per se.
but maybe you guys can turn it into one. So one of the things I was thinking about with Serenity when we're when I knew it was gonna be a topic was like, where do we show it in the like, where is it in our literature, or where is it, that kind of thing. And what came to my mind is that it's on our key tags in Narcotics
Yeah.
Anonymous, right? Uh, Clean and serene is how we measure our clean time, and I think that's really fascinating. Uh, I think that, I mean, the first tag doesn't say it; it just says just for today,
Because you're shaking
and
it hard then.
not much serenity on day one, not much. But then each of them after that, right? So I don't know, that really struck out at me. Um, this is slightly off topic too, but it doesn't say it on our coins or our medallions. It says something. It says something quite different on our medallions. So I think that it's interesting that um, we place it in such high esteem that it's part of the way that we mark our time.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know if there's a question
Yep.
there or
I
not,
I
but
think BW could share on that.
Mm.
The question could merely be, do you see there to be a relative importance between clean time and serenity?
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Um, You can play with it. I think the simple fact is that we gain knowledge of ourself over a process that requires time. Could you be spontaneously met with, a presence of calm gentleness? Could you remain that way and then come out of it, even though more time has passed? I think that could go both ways. I mean, I think we've addressed throughout this podcast today that there's storms that are going to come, and you just can't go from responding to life and having your nervous system wired the way that ours were, to just being like serene all the time. I do not think that's happened. I mean, they say the spiritual experience that's at the back of the book, it says most of us don't have that burning bush moment. You might have a burning. See, I think I've had like mini little burning bush moments, like very throughout the process, like. But have I
Saplings.
been? Yeah, and have I been struck with permanent presence? No. Like these people that sit on a park bench for 8 months and write a book called The Power of Now, and now they're famous and they're teaching the whole world about the power of now. Like that did not happen to me. And it says that it usually is a slower thing. And like for me, just knowing it's possible is all I need to know. I had these things that I think it's like if you can be grateful at any moment, that means that everything that's happened before this moment is okay. Like if I'm grateful today, that means that whatever's happened, even though I have these like things that there's stains in my life, I'm scrubbing, get out of my life, like I'm like praying, please, like the bondage of self or the forgiveness piece. But I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm going to make sure I find myself being grateful today, which means that everything that's happened till today, I can accept. It'll still create discomfort at times, but yeah, I don't think time and serenity, I don't think they require each other. I think you can have time and find yourself deeply disturbed. And I think that you can be quite surprised at how little time is necessary to find serenity as well. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a paradox, that one, to be very honest.
True.
I think that's a good response. For me personally, if serenity had not shown up in my recovery, in my step one, through my surrender of stopping that, the obsession of the mind
Yeah,
about substance, I wouldn't have stuck around.
yeah,
Like that was the, like a pivotal moment where it went from like, what is this crazy shit that people are trying to tell me to do, to this working. And after 17 years of trying to exercise my powerfulness, of like knowing that there was a problem I had with substance, and trying to whoa, there's like a weirdest echo happening ever. Is anybody else
It's,
hearing it?
yeah, it's coming from Bryant, I think.
is it me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is it an echo or a distortion?
it's like a little replay of my words, very lowly.
Do
I'm not
you
sure.
do you want me to go out and come back in?
No, do you have your AirPods?
I don't.
Okay, okay, I can tolerate it. It's there,
I
but
can do
it's
it I could come back on my phone.
no, 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 no. We no, 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 not now, not now. Um, but anyway, for me, it was literally the serenity of that hamster wheels being kind of given away in the surrender. That is the reason I kept going. And the only peace I am finding in my life, that I have found in my life in my 52 years, has been inside this program, and has come from surrendering, and has come from living these steps. So the two are necessary for me to, like, I wouldn't be one of those people who is kind of like the white knuckle addict. Like I know people that I've met in the program with decades of clean time who don't really work the steps, who don't really live the principles. And, you know, like, and I call them the long time, like white knucklers. They're just the most stubborn people you'll ever meet in your life. And they make it, you know, but, you know, like, clean time doesn't equal like recovery.
That's true.
And so for me though, I would have been out of here. I would have been out of here if there wasn't recovery in my recovery. Because I had white knuckled it 20 months on my own. And you know what? That was a real unhappy place to be. And the only changes came was when I came in and started actually embracing the program. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that one there. Scooty Von Bootskins, do you see a relationship between clean time and recover and serenity for you inside your experience in the program?
Yeah, there's definitely some parallels. I don't think it's like a one-to-one parallel, like was mentioned, right? Because
Mm,
I've met some old timers in programs. I do not want what they have. I don't,
mm, yeah.
right?
Fair. That's fair.
You know, and that has come, um, that's come from, for me, that comes from a few different things. And it was actually, a little while ago that, um, I got kind of confronted with that mindset that I had. But my problem with, so, okay, uh, just give me a second. So I think the advantage that you have with clean time is you become more practiced at finding serenity. What I was thinking about though was, I have more expectations on old timers than I do on newcomers.
Mhm.
So when there's times when I'll be around some old timers sharing, and they'll say things that piss me off, and it's my ego getting in the way,
Yeah.
basically, right? Um, but no, I think with like this, I know that for myself, the longer I've been clean, the more practiced I am at kind of grounding myself and stopping the downward spiral and trying to find some of that serenity. Uh, so when Bryant was answering this question, the thought came to mind that, and so this is on the topic of serenity, but I don't know if it's necessarily on the topic of this question. So, but I'm gonna let it rip anyway. So we can't pick and choose what we're grateful for,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to our
Ooh,
past.
yeah.
Especially when it comes to our past. You know, like Brian was saying, well, scrubbing those stains out and getting rid of things that are in our past that we can't. Um,
Yeah.
and how well I accept my past it has a heavy correlation to how serene I am about my present. So that's really important for me to make that distinction. Um, that for me, I need to have a level of serenity with myself in the present to be able to serenely accept my past. Because
Yeah.
it's not easy, right? And
Yeah.
you know, this weekend I was confronted with something where I was starting to think about my past and about my life, and to be honest, I was feeling sorry for myself because my life isn't the way it turned out when I was expecting, right?
Yes.
But then there was a where I forget where I was listening to this, but it just came to me when you guys were talking that serenity is a dance. Acceptance is a
Dan?
dance. A dance, right?
Yeah.
Like like I I can be grateful for my present and I can be grateful for most things of my past, but it's an ebb and a flow, right? It's not I'm not 100% all the time. Sometimes it's more difficult to accept my past. Sometimes I wish I could change my past. Sometimes I don't, right? And for me, I think the correlation between being serene and having clean time is I've gotten better at accepting these things. I've gotten better at the dance.
Nice.
So that's how we would answer that question.
Can I just
Nice.
quickly say that I've met a lot of people and I've I've heard a lot of people talk. I just want to say no one's more special than anyone else, but I just with what your specific things are, your challenges, Scott, I just really appreciate your insights into things because for you to have your own unique way of seeing things, but like you have some beautiful insights and with considering the challenges you've had, it just I'm just really grateful to hear how well this stuff is working for you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful that we're friends and that I get to learn and experience life together.
Hmm.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys being part of my recovery.
And 100% likewise. You guys make a Monday morning a fun day morning. It's true. I was like all excited this morning. I said to my wife, I'm like, it's Monday, fun day, going to see the boys.
You know what? I think I got to be honest. I think one of my speakers on my computers, it's dealing with some serious distortion. I might have to take it in.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that could be what is occurring.
It
Um,
might be.
You know
so,
what it sounds like? Sorry. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like, remember back with cell phones when they were near a speaker cord and it would
Okay.
make that funny noise on the speaker?
Yeah,
That's kind of
yeah,
what it sounds like to me. I don't
yeah.
know.
The right one is. I think something's either blowing or something.
I think it sounds to me like physically that the timing is off on that speaker and that whatever face noise cancellation the microphone offers, it's not catching it because we're still hearing the echo of you hearing us back.
I apologize.
It's okay. It's not loud enough to be like abort mission, you know? It's just like gotta fix it for next time. Um
Yeah, I'm gonna take it in today.
Now, Mr. BW, do you have a question for me?
Yes.
Gosh, I love you guys.
So So how does your relationship with your higher power increase your serenity? What does that specific, like that 2 and 3, how does the 2 and 3 or whatever, however you weave the higher power hopefully into everything, how does that increase your serenity? Like what is it about that helps?
Okay, so I'm gonna like piggyback onto what Scotty said a second ago, that his acceptance of the past, changes his level of serenity of the present. Um, like without my higher power and the surrender and the acceptance that brings, I don't think I'd have any serenity. Like I feel like my serenity exists because of that acceptance and that surrender. And that acceptance and surrender is not on my own. Like I know that whatever my admission of powerless was in the first step, that changed what was going on in my brain. And
Yeah.
I honestly, I spent 17 years wanting to want substances less. And that wanting to want them less didn't lead to less wanting. It led
No
to
question.
more, it literally led to more. So, I call the surrender the Jedi mind trick of the program. It really is. To me, it's like there's a fundamental mechanism that is switched with a surrender that takes away that craziness in my mind. And
Yeah.
I can't fully describe it because I don't think that I'm the one actuating it. And so, you know, but the thing is that, like, man, I don't build cars and I'm happy driving around, and so I don't have to be the puppeteer of my surrender. I just have to be the beneficiary. And so, like my higher power is that mechanism, the universe is the mechanism that creates the perfection. The only thing I do is I have to give gratitude and give away and surrender my will, you know, like that's how I see it.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm filling up that HGB, the Harry God box, like crazy. I'm like, Mr. HGB. I try to do it every morning.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So the question was, how does knowing your higher power, or how does the relationship with that increase your surrender? Like, what is it about how that works for you that gives you a better chance at serenity?
I don't think I would have any measure of serenity at all if I didn't have a higher power in my life.
Yeah.
I and like no, I mean there's a lot of things that I've learned in science,
Yeah.
even that like I don't know how to say it. There's a lot of things in physics that freak me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like just like weird, like but when you I guess maybe that's a bit of an abstract tangent. Um for me though, like when I first started praying
Mhm.
and I got a glimpse of that serenity inside. It
Mhm.
wasn't there right away. But when I got a glimpse of that, it's something that uh I wanted more of. And like so so, is it, so okay, so you know how like okay, so as I'm doing the steps, before I've completed the first set of steps, I'm doing the steps, and I'm having spiritual experiences, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
because you mentioned too, like for you, it wasn't like a big burning bush thing, right? Like I didn't find God and then get struck by lightning and all of a sudden, I'm a Catholic priest or something. But but and I see this with others too, where as we develop and go through the steps, we have a series of spiritual experiences, culminating in a spiritual awakening in step 12. At least for people who come in and don't really have a higher power.
Yeah.
And for me, I think as I the way I developed my relationship with my higher power uh, was through prayer, really. And so through prayer and through working the steps and working the steps in the sense of trying to live spiritually, um, like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I I used to hate that saying for a long time because I thought
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to fake it. But if you fake it and then you make it, were you ever faking it?
Great question.
Yes, I do believe that you can be faking it. I do believe that you can be following actions without the belief and
Well,
actually seeing the benefits of how they occur. And I 100% think you can. I think that there is el fakeity makeity.
definitely. We admitted we were powerless. So you can't be powerful and powerless at the same time. You have to admit the powerlessness to get your power back. And we had to find the power outside ourselves because we admitted we were powerless.
Yeah.
So you're faking it essentially until you do trust that higher power and you begin to trust yourself again. Does that make sense?
Fakeity
Yeah.
makeity. Oh, makeity fakeity.
I'm willing to admit that I was faking it.
I'm willing to admit fakityness only because I'm happy to be makeity.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Woo!
Where are we at?
You are
Yeah.
answering your own question.
Aha. This keeps happening.
Mm.
Uh, so I almost asked this question just to like highlight how important I think this is. I find it fascinating. So I think the steps are so useful that you can remain agnostic or whatever you want to call whatever your lack thereof connection with something that you're calling a higher power. And then these people sometimes bring it back to like the human zone and it's their group or their or nature. I'm just pulling the band-aid off. Like I like to say now, and I'm not worried about how it sounds. I know whatever we call God is real. I just know. I don't need to believe anymore. I know what happens when I break the rules, and I know what happens when I try to follow them to the best of my understanding. And it's not because it's an authoritative figure. These are, like you talked about, physics. There's literal laws that it's the only way that the tree grew and that the rain fell and made its way back to the ocean. The same way with human beings and consciousness, like you cannot be self-centered because it has consequences. And if you take substances to cope with life, it has consequences. So the thing is, this thing actually loves us. It doesn't want us to become enslaved. It's that these rules, these laws that are brilliant, give us a chance to have the best life possible. And I think it's actually a loving power. But because of our stubbornness and our self-centeredness and our limitation, the way I see it is like before this, we didn't need a higher power. So I always laugh at some of the people that were like, "I was God" to me, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like that's terrifying. That you like, but I know what they mean. They basically were self-reliant. I think that's what they're saying, but it sounds even more scary. But this is the most important piece for me. I come. I have beautiful moments and moments where I feel like I'm an orphan again. If I'm honest, I sometimes feel like I've been abandoned by this higher power and I'm like I did everything you asked of me and I do this whole thing and I'm like why is this happening after me trying so hard and but it's okay because you have to grow up. The coolest thing I ever heard or things that I hear is what like we don't necessarily solve our problems, we outgrow them. One of the greatest gifts that I've encountered in the path of sobriety is that like I usually don't get the external always right. It's usually that something shifts within me. There's like a heart and mind collaborative thing where I have to like again surrender and you find yourself closer to serenity. You've given up. It's like I can't accept this. It basically serenity comes after acceptance. It doesn't matter what it is. And it's like, I cannot accept this. And until you do, you will feel that disturbance, which gives you probably that feeling of being abandoned by this higher power because you think this thing should or shouldn't have happened, you know? And so I have to trust that I live in a world with limited awareness, limited faculties. I'm a human being. My sponsor always, he goes, "Oh, so you're just being a human." And I'm like, ah, it's so frustrating because he just immediately is like, "You're just being a human," and I'm like, ah, like because I get down on myself if I don't respond perfectly to things, you know. And anyway, I think the higher power relation is probably the most important thing we'll ever cultivate in our life. It's very personal, but it becomes shareable. Like I think we actually do have a lot of similar experiences. They're just hard to say. The same way we can all talk about the steps and the spiritual principles, I think we do have similarities in our experiences with the higher power. But when I put other things in front of that relationship, usually this higher power renegotiates the order of things, and I find myself having to reorganize and prioritize that over the other things that I thought maybe were more important temporarily. Son of a gun.
I love that. Except I feel like the serenity, like the acceptance will flow from you when you have serenity. You know, like that was my, for me, that was my big epiphany a couple weeks ago is that
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these awesome things are inside me if I can get my state of being to a point of serenity. And I don't think, um, I think I had it wrong for a long time. And I think that it's the state of being that enables me to be all those things, all those
I
principles that I
agree.
want to be.
I agree.
Huh,
And okay,
that's
so
interesting.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Mr. Scooty Bone Boots. This is a long one, so get yourself comfortable. Some of us fear contentment or serenity because it might look like or lead to complacency. If there's nothing left to fight against, will there be anything left to strive for? Finding this balance is a challenge. We can slow down without stopping. We learn to be content without complacent. We can be very happy with our lives as they are and still not stop doing the basics. Has serenity brought complacency to you?
Hmm. Hmm. So I think there are times when there's definitely been times in my recovery where I've been fat and happy and well fed and not really care to work a program. I think that so so when I first came into recovery, I really just I had the gift of desperation when I came back into recovery this last time, and I was deathly afraid of using again. So I really focused on doing whatever I was told, because I had a fear of relapse.
Hmm.
And so for the first chunk of my recovery, I think that for the first while of my recovery, it was very fear based. It was very I just don't want to go back. So it was about stopping the drugs, right? And then as I developed a bit more time, it became more about staying clean than getting clean. And then there was another shift where it became, wow, I like what recovery has to offer. I want more of that, right? So that I don't know, that instinct of being fulfilled switched from drugs to recovery, where I realized that recovery could fulfill my needs as a human
Hmm.
way more than drugs would ever be able to. But with serenity causing complacency is an interesting idea. Um, and for me, I'd say it does. If I'm totally honest, I think
Yeah.
it does because I think that there's ways in which I don't implement my program as strictly as I could
Sure.
because I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
And my life's pretty good right now. So do I really have to do that question in step four? Maybe I can put it off, right?
Right.
Am I gonna do my step 10 tonight before I go to bed? Well, have I done it for the last while? No. I've been okay. So maybe I'll keep not doing it. Right.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that my life is really pretty darn good right now, you know. And I'm able to
Yeah.
cultivate that serenity without shit hitting the fan. Right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, where I am in my life is as Bryant mentioned, is manning up for a lot of things. So I don't think my current bout of lethargy and apathy towards the program is going to last very long.
Nice. Mr. B. Von Dubskins, would you like me to read the question for you again, seeing how short it is?
Yeah, sure. Sure, thanks.
Some of us fear contentment or serenity because it might look like or lead to complacency. If there's nothing left to fight against, will there be anything left to strive for? Finding the balance is a challenge. We can slow down without stopping, learn to be content without being complacent. We can be very happy with our lives as they are and still not stop doing the basics. Has serenity brought complacency?
So, yeah, that's really cool. I have not been so blessed as to not had anything internally or externally that I've become somewhat abrasive to. I have never been alive without things that have torn on my emotions, my fears, and my mind. I have either worried about myself or someone else I care about. I've either been waiting for the money to come in or watching it go out. I've seen friends perish. I've never been carefree ever. I have no trouble admitting that ever. I've never been so content with my physical nature that I haven't felt like that needed some attending to. I've had physical problems since I was 19 years old, constantly having surgeries and different things. I live with neurological damage in my head. I've never, ever, ever been content or carefree, ever. Unless I'm probably getting like 10, 15 minutes in a meeting with my eyes closed, straight up. Um, but I can exist now and be so much more useful, so much less self centered, even though that entire spiel was very self centered. Um, basically,
Sorry.
basically, I believe that the magic has occurred. I think that I got off one train and got on another, and I'm much happier with the direction this one's heading. Like the other one was about to go off a cliff, like it was on its way to destruction, and I think this one's on its way somewhere that my soul will be much more content going. I love that idea of that destination. What I wrote it down, addiction. I tried to appreciate the process rather than always getting the results. Um, that's that like raw facts of being honest, but I have way more contentment than I ever did. Has it made me complacent? Which I think is the nature of the question. I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever been blessed enough to be able to be complacent. Um, well, I guess I'm blessed. Has it made me complacent? I've seen, luckily, when I've been challenged the most, I seem to increase my attentiveness and my presence in the program. I have held back a few times and been gently corrected by the people that have been put in my life to remind me to do more. And I actually hope at one point I do feel so serene that I might have this problem, if I'm honest.
I love that.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
think I'll probably find my way back.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Boy, I sure loved the honesty of both your answers there. Um, it's funny, like I feel like I mean, I'm down from 5 sponsees to 2 sponsees. Is that complacent? Like, no, it's actually regaining some serenity in my life. Like
Yeah.
five was extreme, man.
Mhm.
Five was extreme, and I realized in that process that I was maybe being a people pleaser by saying yes with when I shouldn't have.
That's amazing to know that. That's a huge thing to understand.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and like so, man, I don't feel complacent in my program. I just don't. I've been, like I don't miss my appointments with my sponsor. I don't miss my ones with my sponsees. I'm at an all-time high for in-person meeting attendance. Which has scaled back my online meeting attendance, but you know, um, I realized that for myself that what was happening was I was letting myself get distracted to in an online meeting. Whether it
Mhm.
was like chatting, whether it was my mind was wandering, started cleaning the room, and I wasn't really doing like like a meeting is what they say is two or more addicts sharing. And
Mhm.
it's not sharing if you're not paying attention.
No.
100%.
Mhm.
Like if you're not really listening, you've broken the sharing cycle.
Yeah.
Like it's true. Like
Yeah.
sharing is pitch and receive. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's not just like monologue and no attention. And I was starting to feel that I was getting to that point that it was like I would get distracted. So I tried to like put my phone away from me and close my eyes and this and that. And it just wasn't working with me with the online ones. Whereas if I go sit in a room physically, I'm not chatting with anybody. I'm not distracted. I'm like looking at the person who's sharing. Like it's a whole different ability for me to not be distracted.
Yeah.
And I realized that my recovery needed more of that. Even if I started going to meetings that I wasn't getting as much out of as some of the online ones, I just felt like I needed that. I needed that for myself. So, man, I don't know. I feel like, like I said, if I rewind the tape, I'm 100 times more serene than I was 18 months ago,
Oh yeah.
and um, I don't feel complacent. And I'm not saying that with pride. Like I'm not saying that boastfully. I'm just saying that I feel like if anything right now, like I mean, you know, in my recovery is a huge fucking part of every single day for me. Like it's a
Mhm.
huge part. It's not like, well, I'm going to do a little bit of recovery one day a week. It's like, like I mean, I have two of these in one day sometimes. Like I'm talking about recovery for 4 hours, going to a meeting, dealing with the sponsee, talking to my sponsor. Like there's a lot. And I'm just not feeling complacent at all.
Mhm.
I'm feeling like actually I found a better balance that gives me more serenity.
Nice.
Like I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do a podcast this certain day, and I'm not going to a meeting that day, and and that day is just about trying to do something with my family and having it
Totally.
like that. So, Scotty, you had asked for us to start earlier, so I'm assuming that you want to be done in the next 17 minutes, right?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. So, do you have more questions, BW?
Yeah, I had one more.
Okay, I'm going to pull on. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to pull on the timer, as we so like to do, and we're going to do 1 minute lightning round with the rest of the questions that people have. And we'll make sure that we're done in time. But I do love the lightning round. So, B Dubs, you can ask me a question.
Question is how do you stay present when you're in the company of other people's character defects?
Whoa, now that is certainly one of the toughest things. If it's a family member, holy moly, it's almost impossible for me to. I'd be lying to say I like it wasn't, you know, uh,
Awesome.
uh, like taking a breath, sometimes walking out of the room, giving
Yeah.
myself a timeout is probably the only thing I've found to be successful. Sometimes I'll sit there and while I'm getting talked to, I write out the situation on a card and put it in my Harry God box as the situation's occurring. Like the Harry God box isn't for later for me. Sometimes the Harry God box is right for now. And I try to give over my will in that situation immediately. Okay, I'm going to leave my answer there. Mr. Scooty Boots, would you like to respond to that one or you want him to read it again?
No, I remember
Okay,
so
boom.
for myself, and this goes for most times I'm in a situation like that, is reminding myself that everybody's fighting an invisible battle, right? So, and that includes myself. But so when I'm in a situation where people are getting on my, see, I guess, okay, this is the way I look at it. I am not an extrovert. I feel less connected usually when I'm around people. I'm more connected when I'm at home, maybe just with my wife and stepdaughter. So for me,
Mhm.
I have a battery, right? And when I'm in social situations and this battery is topped up, I'm very tolerant and caring individual. As the battery drains, I get less and less tolerant until eventually I have to just peace out.
I love that. That's the what a beautiful way to describe that. And Mr. BW, your own question. Go.
Yeah. For me, I think staying present, consciously present, has huge benefits. Because you're observing it, you're not getting as tangled up in it. So what I do is I either depersonalize the situation. We've acknowledged that you don't have to be an addict or a drunk to have character defects, and I try to extend the open-mindedness that this person is not living out of a spiritual solution. Depersonalize it, maybe interact with some courage. Like we still, they say we don't crawl before anybody. Like it's okay to stand up for yourself, and or like you're allowed to set boundaries and speak to someone with assertiveness without being aggressive or a pushover. I also, if I do screw up and I get involved, I will make my step 10 amend.
Boom. Okay. Okay, this here's a it's a longer question, but it's got a potential for a shorter answer. Scooty Boots. There are some signs that help us distinguish serenity from complacency. When we get judgmental, ungrateful, agitated, we're probably on the wrong side of that line. When interacting with others starts to seem exhausting or burdensome, or we forget that we are important to others, we might be slipping back into self obsession. Do these statements seem true to you? How or how not?
Yeah, I think that. So, like Brian was saying, so if you combine what Brian was saying with what I was saying, you get the idea of like recognizing the things that are going on within myself and how that can paint or color or look through, recognize that I'm looking through a lens as well. So if I'm hungry, if I'm tired, if I'm overstimulated, if I've abused coffee for the day, these are situations where I will be 100 times more likely to switch out of a loving and tolerant and patient center and more into the opposite, right? Short fuse, being being disruptive, all that kind of stuff. So I have to remember that I'm in my own lens and I have to be present in that lens.
Boom, right down to the finish line. Okay, Mr. Bevan Dubskins. There are signs that help us distinguish serenity from complacency. When we get judgmental, ungrateful, agitated, we're probably on the wrong side of that line. When interacting with others starts to seem exhausting or burdensome, or we forget that we are important to others, we might be slipping back into self obsession. Do you see these statements true? How or how not?
Yeah, I think those are great systems to bring awareness that something can be done. I I was greatly relieved to find out the only person that I can control is me, and apparently I had no self control, so that was kind of scary. But now that we've kind of, that's why I think it's so. That's the difference between serenity and not, is like trusting yourself. It was mentioned earlier. It's like I got to stay out of other people's stuff, and I got to make sure that I'm being gentle with myself, but working on myself. Because without that mechanism, I'm getting way too wrapped up in what others are doing and what others are doing to me. And yeah, there's things that can be done.
Boom. Okie dokie. There are some signs that help us distinguish serenity from complacency. When we get judgmental, ungrateful, agitated, we're probably on the wrong side of that line. When interacting with others starts to seem exhausting or burdensome, or we forget that we're important to others, we might be slipping back into self obsession. Do you see these statements as true? How or how not? Well, I definitely 100% see them as true. And, I like the part there that says when interacting with others starts to seem exhausting or burdensome. When I'm tired and in a wrong frame of mind, the opportunity to solve problems turns into everything's a hassle right off the bat. And then I know it when I go to a meeting. When I go to a meeting and I'm like, can barely wait for people to finish their shares. Like I'm not gleaning anything from it. I'm like halfway through the meeting, I'm like, this is a me problem. Like I try to take a deep breath and settle back and be like, whoa, dude, like slow this judgment down. I was at a meeting in Mexico the other month and the lady said, she's like, I'm so inside my brain. She's like, how long does it take to judge a room full of people? 1 hour, because that's what I could do in any meeting. And I
Yeah.
found that right there, hit the nail on the head for me. Okay, I've got another one for you, Mr. Scooty Boots. When we take the Serenity Prayer seriously and really consider what in our lives we do have the courage to change, we find that the ability to shape our lives is limited more by our willingness than by anything outside ourselves. How is your willingness currently shaping your recovery?
So I've been practicing step 12 and carrying this message, practicing these principles in all my affairs. So I'm at a point right now in my life where I've at the start of some longer journeys, and I'm invigorated by the fact that uh, not a rebirth as the phoenix, but like a new chapter in my life,
Yeah.
and I'm very motivated. So which is good because motivation gets the ball rolling, right? And yeah, no, I think that just practicing these principles in all of my affairs has led to very great benefits in my life.
I love that. Okay, Mr. B Dubs, when we take the Serenity Prayer seriously and really consider what in our lives we do have the courage to change, we find that our ability to shape our lives is limited more by our willingness than by anything outside ourselves. How is your willingness currently shaping your recovery?
Yeah, I think as long as it's still there, we can have the light can dim or it can blaze. And I think that it's there at all times. And it's like the higher power. It's always been there. So what are you gonna tap into? I gotta the greatest gift I can give myself is compassion sometimes, because I have not overcome all things yet. It's not. It's a work in progress. So they see the progress rather than the perfection. I think the greatest thing you can do is remind yourself of what used to eat your lunch and how those things just don't exist anymore, which means that we now know we can triumph over people, places, and things if we wish to allow those spiritual principles to get us to see it from an angle that doesn't hold us back and gives us that courage. How do I create courage? To me, it's just facing the fear. It's been a really heck of a season here, but if I'm honest with myself, I have been facing the fear. It's just not always overnight.
Boom. Okay. And Milan, how is my willingness currently shaping my recovery? Well, my willingness, I would say, is definitely keeping me from being complacent, keeping me curious in life and enamored inside this whole recovery process. Like I don't see there being an end destination inside recovery. I see this as the perpetual journey that I have the gift of like the chance to be part of. Like I wouldn't know you two stallions without this program. And what am I doing? I'm getting to talk about something that is like my favorite thing in the world. Like what a gift I have today. My willingness is keeping me expanding, oh yes, we do want the joke at the end. But my willingness is currently shaping my recovery in the fact that it's just pushing me forward all the time, over and over and over. Okay, I got one last quick question, and this is a good one. Mr. Scooty Boots, and then we're going to have Scotty's joke of the week. Okay, serenity may be the presence of peace or the absence of chaos. How do you remind yourself of this simple truth, Scotty, Scooty, Booty?
I think of it as like being in the eye of the storm, right? So like, I recognize that if I can stay in my lane and focus on what I can control, then the rest of it won't infringe on my little bubble. I really think that, as some of the previous questions, like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. So what can I change? What sphere of realm do I have information on, or that I can have impact on? And that's self. And that's not even all of myself, right? So I can't get rid of my character defects on my own. But it's up to me to develop a relationship with my higher power so that I can move positively in my life.
Boom, mic drop by Scotty here at the end. Serenity may be the presence of peace or the absence of chaos. How do you remind yourself of this simple truth, Mr. B Dubs?
I welcome the absence of chaos all day, every day. I recall when I was in that first year, I would be in these situations at work where everyone was losing it and upset and smashing things or screaming because whatever. And I just remember sitting back and being like, none of this is that important. Like my life had been so chaotic leading up to that. I was like, I'm not getting wrapped up in this stuff, like I'm gonna try to be the calm one. And like at that time it was working. My program was functioning like so I'm trying to always get back to that place where I realize today's the day, stay in the day. Obviously, we do what we can to avoid chaos ourselves, but when the dust gets kicked up, maybe I just try my best to remind myself that this can't be that important. I'm not going to lose myself in this.
Oh, love that. I love this. Can't be that important. Here we go. I would say that I got a kick in the balls on this exact thing this weekend, where I was struggling with something, talking to my sponsor about, man, how come like no matter what I'm doing here, I'm praying about this, and he's like, man, are you giving gratitude for the partial relief you've had in this situation? And it's gratitude for me, like this is where gratitude, like peace or just the absence of chaos, being grateful for there not being something negative is turning that into a positive situation. And I feel like for myself, I had forgotten to give thanks for that and gratitude. So I want to end today with gratitude can bring serenity. That's my end statement. I do believe that there is a wonderful comedian in this triad, and his name is Scooty Boots, the stage handler. Could you come to us with the final joke of the day, everybody?
Yeah. So I found out the easiest way to do the step 10. This is have a wife.
Whoa! Tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye-bye, everybody. Mwah. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.